The Navigating Disability podcast often discusses topics including disability, injury, mental health, and mentions of sensitive issues such as trauma and suicide. Listener discretion is advised. Please take care while listening. Welcome to the Navigating Disability podcast. Today we're excited to have Fiona Fonti, a dedicated advocate for disability rights and accessibility. Fiona works to raise awareness around the challenges many people face and the importance of inclusive spaces. In this episode, she'll share her personal journey and insights on accessibility, as well as practical ways to create more inclusive communities. Fiona's stories highlight the strength and resilience of the disability community. Whether you're navigating your own journey or just want to learn more, this conversation's for you. Let's dive in. Welcome, Fiona.
Thank you so much for having me, Kate and Jen.
No problem. It's an absolute pleasure. Now, you've been going through some really life-changing moments over the last few years. Do you want to tell us a little bit about them?
Yeah, so maybe I'll start from the beginning. So I'm profoundly deaf and have been since I was 3 years old. And then kind of there's been other, I guess, struggles or moments over the period of my life, but about 4 years ago there was quite a significant event that happened, and I think I've just kind of slowly come to realize, literally in the last week or so, that it was probably an extreme burnout in a way of overwhelm, and kind of along with that there was epilepsy diagnosis, and then more recently, I guess along the way, some kind of a neurological disorder that was never named. And then a week ago, I received my ADHD combined type diagnosis with a functional neurological overlay. And there'll probably be more to this story as we go, but a huge journey of self-discovery over the last 4 years and dealing with like huge changes in city and what I can and can't do, and having to kind of refocus on, what can I do now? What are my strengths now? Without really knowing what was going on for a long time.
Tell us about growing up profoundly deaf. I actually had an uncle who was completely deaf, and he was very good like you in that he could lip read fantastically. So I didn't need to learn how to sign or anything like that. But one thing I always remember about him is he always ended a conversation with, "I love you." He's a beautiful, beautiful man. So can you tell me what it was like for you growing up profoundly deaf?
So it was probably a unique experience. So my brother and sister are deaf as well. So, but no one else in my family is deaf. So it was new to my family. I think I was lucky in the sense that I did have siblings going through the same kind of journey. My parents were not given the option of having us introduced to Auslan early on. It was very much a focus on speech and mainstream education. And that was actually really challenging because you kind of don't have an identity in the hearing world so much. And then I was only, I guess, introduced to the deaf world maybe around the age of 16 and not really being fully part of that community either. So I am involved in that community, but I don't have the same level of like Auslan communication or connection, and kind of not really quite knowing where I fit. And I guess always going to a mainstream school, not realizing how much energy and intensity kind of goes into the lip reading, the reading social cues, the following conversation, kind of being on the outside all the time, but actually wanting to be involved, but being too scared to initiate it because I didn't really know what the conversations were. So it was a very interesting journey, and the technology, I guess, was nowhere near what it is today. So even, I guess, having to teach teachers how to use an FM system at the time, teaching them kind of what I needed. I didn't really know how to speak up for myself as a child. So it was maybe a bit of a lonely journey, but I guess I did have really supportive family, and having my brother and sister who were also having a similar journey actually led to lots of good fun times as well. So we could be at a family a family gathering and just be lip reading each other across the room and no one would have an idea of what we were saying. So there were lots of positives and fun things as well.
So are you lip reading Jen and I today, or can you
I
hear us?
so probably both. So I do have bilateral cochlear implants now, but I only wear my left one now, so I can't hear it all in my ear. And that's a choice because the sensory input from the right ear is just too much. So I've chosen not to wear it. And that was probably triggered 4 years ago. So I am lip reading, but I can also hear because we're in this one-on-one
Yeah.
environment and there's no kind of background noise. But yeah, I think lip reading is just a skill that I had to learn from an early age. And so I naturally just lip read. I can't stop myself.
And what an amazing gift to have of lip reading because, most as Aussies, we mumble a lot,
Yes.
really do. So for you to be able to navigate the world lip reading, kudos to you because that's an amazing feat with how us Australians actually talk and pronounce things because the slang and all the things.
Yeah, exactly. And it's an interesting thing as well because sometimes there's just an assumption that all people who are deaf and hard of hearing can lip read or do lip read. That's not necessarily the case because we don't know their journey in relation to the hearing loss or kind of when it occurred or, if they were exposed to Auslan from an early age and kind of had a different way of learning language. So I think that's something that's really good for people to be aware of as well. Is not everyone can lip read, and so when speaking to a deaf person, being able to ask, what is your preferred form of communication, what works for you, that's actually really, really important.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
that's coming back to someone else we spoke to this morning. It's all about asking the questions. Don't be scared to talk to people, but how do you communicate? What is the best way for us to speak to you? Just asking.
Yeah, just asking. Yeah, because I think I even kind of remember at school, and it was, teachers having really good intent and wanting to make sure I understand, but sometimes really exaggerating their movements and slowing down their speech. And I'm like, that's actually so much harder to
It's
lip read,
insulting.
but it's not natural movement. So that's really interesting as well. But most people that have really, really good intent, it's just maybe ask first and
How
help.
was your education growing up, being affected with hearing loss and not having the assistive technology that's available today? How did you cope getting through school?
To be honest, I don't really know. I look back at it now and I'm like, I don't really know. Because, yeah, like I said, I did have an FM, which is basically like a microphone that the teacher wore and it connected to my hearing aid at the time. But that also picked up all background noise. So if paper was rustling, if they were writing on the blackboard, you wouldn't hear their voice, you would hear the background noise. And then now that I know I have the combined ADHD diagnosis and probably a lot of sensory sensitivities that I haven't fully explored yet. I wonder if the deafness also was a cover for some of the ADHD that kind of wasn't easily picked up at the time either. But getting back to the question of how I navigated it, I think it was just perseverance and kind of I didn't reflecting back, there was so much kind of teaching and learning that I had to do myself. So I've always been really, really interested in learning. I've really loved reading as a child, whereas now I find reading novels or books really hard. Probably I don't have the same brain capacity for it. So I'd rather read journal articles or research articles. It's just changed over time. But I think a lot of like self-teaching happened as well. And I think not realizing how much extra demand that placed because that was through school, high school, university. University was like a whole nother level.
That was my next question is how did you go at university? Because you are an occupational therapist. You have your own company, which is amazing. You would be considered to be very successful.
Yeah, and that's a good question as well because I think internally I feel like I'm failing a lot in lots of different areas, and it's kind of this internal, I guess, negative self-talk because I always feel like there's so much more I should be doing better, or why am I not achieving what I need to do in a certain amount of time. It's really negative, but it's all kind of, I guess, self-imposed expectation or my perception of expectations rather than that they are being imposed.
Does
And
that
at
sound like
university,
anyone you know, Jen?
Yep, yep.
Sorry, go on.
We're also negative to ourselves.
yeah,
We all self-loathe, we all self-criticize, and we're our harshest critics, aren't we? We
yeah,
could be the best of the best, but we'll always see a negative in that best and
yeah,
really focus on that. And as I'll put my hand up, I'm a shocker for it, as is Kate. We
But,
yeah,
we look at you, Fiona, and we see a successful person, a successful businesswoman, a successful disabled person. You're made,
yeah,
but it's not our opinion that matters. It's
no,
yours.
yeah,
yeah. And I think it's also, a really strong kind of imposter syndrome and kind of feeling like, when I go into environments where there's other people, like how do I speak up about myself? How do I start conversation? And again, is that kind of ADHD or, potential other neurodiversity things going on for me that I'm only just learning about myself now. So maybe over time that will change that perception and I will work with my psychologist and people around me. But yeah, there's just a lot of build up and yeah, I don't know how to explain it, but it's a lot. It's an interesting journey. And I think maybe going back, if I talk about uni again, so I actually went straight from school into studying medical science. So I didn't do OT from the beginning and I did medical science for a year, but I struggled there. I couldn't lip read in the same way at uni. So I'd be in a chemistry class, the lecturer would be kind of walking around the lab. I just could not understand a thing. And then that ability to self-teach was so much harder at university because the concepts were so much more complex. There was no access to an official note taker or printouts of lectures or anything that I could refer to. So I did rely on photocopying other people's notes, which often either I couldn't read or they didn't make sense to me. So that first year of uni and kind of having to organize and self-manage myself and also literally not being able to hear and understand a lot of what was going on. Somehow I managed to at least pass everything, but I cannot tell you how I managed to do that
Did the
by
university offer you any support?
just photocopying other people's notes.
Oh,
Yeah, but it would be very different now. Like it
yeah,
would
it
be
is.
very
Well, you would
different. And I
hope.
couldn't advocate, I didn't know how to advocate for myself then, that your confidence, well, my confidence in advocating for myself has definitely changed over time. And with maturity and kind of with being comfortable, kind of sharing about myself, that's something that has changed and developed over time. But when I was fresh out of school, starting uni, I just wanted to fit in. I didn't want to make a big deal that things were different or they were harder. So a lot of things were just hidden. And I did have burnout period definitely in that year of uni. So then I chose to have a year off and I guess reconsider what I wanted to do. And in that year off, I actually helped work with a deaf charity organisation to start up some youth events and young adult events. Because at that time there was a lot of maybe more around for young kids and older adults, but not so much in between. And there was no Facebook at that time. So it was literally sending out letters in the post. And I remember organising a few like fundraising gala balls and we'd have 250 to 300 people come to those. And that was kind of my biggest introduction to the deaf community then as well. And then
Was that a place of belonging, Fiona?
it was a place of like feeling not so alone because there's kind of other people with shared experiences. But in the deaf community, the experiences are so varied as well because it depends on, from a deaf family, did you go to a deaf school? Did you meet other deaf children or
That's
how to
really interesting
kids?
that you
It's so
say that
different. Yeah,
because I look at the neurodiversity for people with autism. They say if you've met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism. And that's why they call it a spectrum because every single person's involvement is different. And it sounds the
exactly.
same as the deaf, I'm sure it's the deaf or the blind or every single individual's different.
That's right. And so I guess in our role as an OT, it's really important we don't go into any assessment or kind of working with everyone just assuming anything. We just need to go in and, really understand the individual and, what do they need for their support? Like, what are their goals? Like, how is their life impacted? It's actually not the disability, it's the functional impact and what does it mean for that person. And having that kind of conversation, don't focus on the disability, focus on what's the impact, what would you like to be able to do, what are your goals. I think that for me is something that's quite important in how I like to do my practice.
So what would be your best advice for someone with a disability that feels stuck? Because you've worked through the challenges that you've been faced with and you have a successful business and things like that. What would be your best piece of advice for someone that just feels like they're stuck and there is no hope for them?
Probably advice that I wish I had been given to me a lot earlier on is try and find your safe person or a person that you can talk to and have a conversation with whoever that is. Like, who is that person that you feel safe with, that you can open up to and kind of share, what some of the challenges are. And sometimes being able to verbalize and talk through it can actually help bring clarity to yourself as well. So find who are your support people, who are your safe people. If I could go back to 15-year-old me and give myself that advice at the time, that would have been amazing. And I think maybe one of the key things here is how do we start having conversations earlier, like with children, and empowering them to have those conversations from an early age, because the life experience may then change quite significantly.
I
Yeah.
think we underestimate kids. They're like sponges, they absorb. So
Yeah.
if at an early age and show them that confidence and have a voice and things like that, it'd be so much easier for them. They'll have challenges, no doubt, but it'll be easier for them to speak up and say, "Hey, I need help here." I think we underestimate our kids.
Yeah. And they often know that the kids know so much, and finding a way to support them to communicate from early on and build that confidence to do so, and that it's okay to do so, I think can be really powerful kind of in future
Well,
generations as well.
we're our own best advocates, right? So, if we can't do that or we don't have the strength to do that, then
Mm.
it's harder to ask for help. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think it starts at a young age to build that confidence, I think, regardless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What made you go into OT? So you've had a break from uni.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I had actually never heard of it. And okay, I'm also like, even as I'm talking to you, I'm thinking of my brain. So in that year, I was involved in multiple things. So I was kind of working with the deaf organisation, and then I was also working as a level 3 support worker, like a carer under the old system, and worked with people with a whole range of disabilities and met some absolutely amazing individuals who were succeeding like so much and doing so much, and that they had kind of adaptive technology in place and things that helped them function. And I was like, oh, it just opened my eyes quite a lot. And then I started, I guess, doing research into kind of university courses. I always knew I was interested in some kind of allied health, but I'd never heard of OT. And then I read the description and I was like, oh, this looks really interesting. And it was just so broad and diverse. And I was like, I think I'll try this. And then I ended up loving it. So it was probably kind of an accident in a way, finding it, but a blessing to find it, because just love the scope of work that we can do as an OT and the people that we meet and the positive impact that we can have. And yeah, that's just, for me, that's really fills my cup.
A couple of years ago, you had quite a life-changing event. Can you tell us a little bit more about that time?
Yeah, so I was working full time, running my business, trying to grow my business, and then all of a sudden, one day I was actually at work, and then it looked like what was a stroke. So I was admitted to a stroke ward. I was actually in hospital for a few weeks and then had to go to rehab. 5 weeks, and then outpatient rehab, ended up back in hospital, and my function as I knew it had changed significantly. But in my mind, with my OT brain, I'm like, it's okay, it'll be a 6 month recovery. I'm just going to kind of grade myself back, build myself, everything will go back to normal. And the 6 month mark came, and I was like, actually, like my function has completely changed. So being able to manage day to day, I wasn't allowed to drive. I only got my license back 3 weeks ago.
So what
So
was it, a stroke?
no, no, we don't know if it was a seizure or a particular type of migraine. That's never been able to be confirmed. And one of the challenges is because I do have bilateral cochlear implant, having an MRI was really challenging, and any information like seen on the MRI images was greatly covered by the cochlear implant artifact. So I've never actually fully received a very specific, this is exactly what happened. So I'm trying to navigate, I guess, the unknown. And this is where I guess being an OT, I think, has really helped me, because it was like, okay, what are the challenges? Like, what are the issues? And, I have been on the NDIS and I have received support, and I guess having a big team around me helping to advocate for my needs, because my function had changed so dramatically at that time. And then I guess having to keep the business going, work out, okay, well, what can I do now? How can I function? But always having this expectation of myself that I should still be able to do everything. Yeah.
Roller coaster. How did that affect that event? How did that affect your family?
Significantly. I guess my husband, my kids, my parents, my siblings, they had to kind of jump in and help me with a lot of things that I was independent with. The fatigue, the not being able to get up in the morning, driving me to appointments, managing the household, and, essentially becoming a carer for me for a while until I was able to figure out what I could do. It was a huge change for them, because they've seen this person that was functioning at way too high a level. And I realized now on reflection, it was completely unrealistic what I was expecting myself to do. Like, when I just remembered the kids being born, I was back at work when they were 3 weeks old. I had emergency cesarean back up, and then expecting myself to be able to still maintain a high level of work, look after newborn, bringing them to
But we're
breastfeeding.
we can do everything.
Yeah, but it's so unrealistic. Like, I was literally
Absolutely is,
having off
especially
4 hours
after an
sleep.
emergency C-section.
Pardon?
Especially after an emergency. I've had 3 C-sections, and they weren't emergencies. And go you for being back up in 3 weeks working.
It was absolutely ridiculous. It was a completely unrealistic
Yeah.
expectation. And it was really interesting because my psychiatrist asked me a question the other day. It was, how could you have done things differently? And I'm like, what do you mean? And she was saying, what about planning ahead and, you know, plan ahead for how the business could be managed differently. And I'm like, my brain just didn't go there. It was just this immediate assumption, I've got to be able to do it all and I have to be able to maintain it all. And yeah, just the expectations were so unrealistic looking back.
You're putting a lot of pressure on yourself.
Yeah.
So would you say it's that event where you were hospitalized and in rehab and so forth, that made you slow down? Has that also made you look at, other things that maybe aren't right or open your mind up to other avenues?
100%. Yeah. So a lot of self-reflection. And to be honest, I think it was early 2021, and I think it was the second wave of COVID not long after. So if there's a blessing in it all, is it happened around that time when the world was kind of slowed down a little bit. Anyway, I kind of always try and find like the positive glimmers around that time. But then, yeah, it's just, I guess, led to a lot of self-reflection around, look, why has my function changed so much? So why am I not able to manage the house, kind of maintain a routine? Why is all my energy, like literally I have hardly energy I've got kind of capped energy and I need to try and focus it into work and the business. Like, why can't I do all of this? And then I guess the health system is really hard. So people in the health system, what I've learned is there's no one really that helps you to navigate or to ask the right questions, and I guess every doctor you see looks at you through their lens rather than looking at you, look like what is the whole picture here that
Holistic.
we're seeing, and maybe asking other questions. And that's what's really missing from, I think, from my experience from the health system, is someone helping to navigate and understand, okay, let's look at the whole person, let's look at the whole picture here, remove like just the medical model, what else is going on. And then along that journey, I was like, okay, what else could be impacting on my cognitive function? And then I was like, oh, there's perimenopause happening as well. Got all of that happening,
Love that.
all of that, and then just more reflection around myself. And then a couple of people mentioned, oh, do you think maybe you might be neurodiverse in some way? And I was like, oh, I don't know. Like, and then I did the screeners, and my scores were through the roof on every screener. And I just thought that that's how everyone
It's normal.
operates. Yeah. And so that was really like, that was quite insightful. I was like, okay. And then it started the process of thinking about myself differently. And then my psychologist flagged the same thing, and she's like, look, let's get your referral to
It's funny how it all sort of hits you at once. My process was very similar. Jen said something to me, and then 2 weeks later, I was at the GP for something totally irrelevant. And her first words to me were, oh, do you think you're neurospicy? And once I was on that journey, I had the appointment with the psychiatrist all booked. It's just like a domino effect, because all of a sudden you can see it.
You say it.
Clear
And
as day.
exactly. And then I don't know if you did this, but I know what I did is was kind of gathered all this evidence about myself and reviewed my whole life, and then was able to look at like even like the OT assessment of my functional capacity and say, hang on a minute, like this is kind of obvious. I said, well, and then so I think I went to the psychiatrist with so much information. It was like, I don't know, it was just part of the
It is.
process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
But it helps. Like I'm one that I like to investigate things. If someone says something, I like to investigate, so I'm able to absorb it in my own way. And I feel that you girls are the same. So
Yeah.
when we go to certain appointments, we're armed, we're ready.
Yeah, exactly that.
And I know this and this and it, but I just think it's a helpful conversation then, because you're not going in naive. You're
No.
going with what you understand, and if that's not how it should be interpreted, then that gives a platform for discussion. So I'm
Right.
all being armed with as much knowledge as possible. They may not like it, but
No.
I like going in with knowledge.
Yeah, well, and it's helpful. And I think, another huge thing that I've learned just through this process, but even through kind of the work that I do, is we are also in a space where we see so much and we not understand so much, and we can advocate for ourselves. Not everyone has the same information or the same access or the same experience, or has kind of seen other people go through the journey. So I think it's important to be mindful that we're in quite a unique, it's a fortunate situation, but we're able to come with
Yeah.
information because of our experience and what we've seen. How can we maybe like be that support for other people? How, like, where does that come from? Because there's a lot of people that are lost and don't know what to do next, or they get discharged from hospital and they're told you'll be fine, or from how you function in a rehab center where everything is done for you is so different to how you function when you're at home, and there's no education or planning for that.
Yeah.
And there's none of like those conversations, and then it becomes overwhelming because people go home and they're like, oh, I'm functioning so much worse, and it's but not having that explained, prepared, or pre-planned, and that doesn't tend to happen from what I've seen. And
And I
I don't,
could
yeah,
not agree.
yeah.
What would be your advice to people in that situation that have had a traumatic event, they've been in hospital, they're in rehab? What's your advice for the transition from rehab to home?
Maybe having a list of questions around, what can I expect when I go home? Because often the goals in rehab, or what I found for myself, was to be able to shower independently, to be able to walk a certain distance, go to the toilet, and I'm like, but that's not my life. I need to be able to care for my kids, go to work, cook dinner. Like, that's not my life. So how
And I
asking,
think you expect to go back to who you were before.
yes,
You've
100%.
come out of hospital, so I'm fixed. Now I can go back and be who I was. But it's not like that at all.
Like that at all. And so how do you ask those questions? But the thing is, when you're caught in, at that time, because it's so confusing often and it's so unexpected, it's actually really hard to ask the right question or to know the right question to ask because you're in, like you're
Mm.
stuck in it. And so it would be amazing if there, and I don't know where this comes from, but it's kind of like a dream or a vision that it would be so great to be able to have some kind of a transitional support. So for people getting ready to leave rehab or leave hospital to help prepare, okay, what are your goals for when you return home? What supports will you need? How might your function be different for a while? Like, where does, that's kind of a huge gap. And I think it it I don't know what the answer is, but it's in my head and it's an idea. I have a lot of ideas and a lot of things, and but I don't always know how to fix them, and I always want to fix everything.
But there is a
Um,
solution for everything. And
yeah,
I think you've got something now in your brain that there's a gap in the market.
Yeah.
yeah, I know,
So
but where does it come from? Like, how do we? So, and then so often I just need to process and think about it, but it could just be so powerful to just give that support early on because your confidence gets hit so hard and you doubt yourself. Um,
and you don't want to
you
be a
don't,
burden on anyone else, on your husband, your children.
I know, and to feel, I think to recognize actually I have to accept support and to get support because the other thing is if I didn't have my supports that I do, I would not be here functioning
No.
and doing work and being able to do other things because it's I need support in other areas of my life so that I can
Mm.
function in the things that are important to me and be present here today. And I think that often underestimated as well, that, with the right support, it is possible for people to achieve goals. But having to fight that all the time is really hard.
And it's draining. It's draining.
And not just for me personally, I'm kind of talking kind of broader like in the work that we do, and it's having an impact on so many people. So,
Yeah. I mean, Kate and I see it every day. We come
mm,
to it every day trying to help people, and the struggle is real for people out there. They're unheard, they're unsupported, and they need that engagement and that, someone that can fight for them, advocate for them. So it's really important.
yeah, exactly. And I think, even having to go through all the assessment processes and understand what, that's exhausting in itself. That's like another job in itself
Yeah.
when all of that's happening as well. So it's an interesting journey, and I could talk for hours around it, but I'll let you ask the next question, otherwise I'll keep going.
What does the future hold for Fiona Fonti?
That's actually a really big question to ask me right now, because one of the things that I realized again by a question that my psychiatrist asked is, but what's the end goal? Like, what are you trying to achieve? Like, where exactly do you want to get to? Because it's kind of go, go, go. You have ideas, you run with them, you try and get things happening, but kind of what's the goal? So I need to actually self-reflect and really clearly ask that question. But my goal is to keep helping as many people as possible through the business. I also want to make sure that I'm really present and have energy for my family and my kids, because I realize that they've really missed out on a lot of me over the past 4 years. Just getting the ADHD diagnosis and kind of understanding myself and how I function, and now being treated for that, I can already see some changes, but it's so early on. So it could also be a honeymoon phase. And I don't know. I still need to figure it out. So basically, my answer is I don't 100% know yet. I need to figure it out. I'm on that part of my journey because I'm relearning who I am.
Yeah.
But that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
And
exciting, to be honest.
don't put
I
too much pressure on yourself.
yeah,
You can't keep going forever.
no.
Stop and smell the roses.
Yes, that's true. And the thing is, you hear all of this advice, you give all of this advice, but I'm actually the worst patient at taking things on my
Agreed. Me too. I had that discussion with my husband the other day. He goes, "You are the worst patient," because I'm impatient. I just want.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just being able to recognize that and I guess know who your supports are around you and how can you build people up. So say from a business and I've actually changed my role in the last 2 weeks because I'm starting to understand myself. And I think what I perceived as were my strengths in the past have actually changed quite a lot. So how does my role change in the business and how does this thing also create other people to opportunity to step up with their strengths and how can my conversations change so that I'm actually more aware that the way my brain works is not the same way that everyone else's brain works and everyone is so different in the team as well. So I think want to be a better manager and ask more questions and be really curious and understand and learn along the way.
So that other people can shine as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what a leader is all about.
Yeah, and the team, like, there's amazing. I can't speak more highly of them. Yeah, they're so passionate. And so they've kind of been on the journey with me in a way because I am quite open, which I think is really important because I guess vulnerability in yourself hopefully creates a safe space for other people to know that it's okay to like come and be vulnerable and to ask questions and to kind of explore what may work for you. But then I also take that on with my kids as well, teaching them about emotional regulation and kind of communication and yeah, it's just I think learning a lot about ourselves can actually have a ripple effect in everyone around you as well, hopefully in a positive way.
Yeah.
Over time.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
To be kind to ourselves.
Yeah.
In
I have
terms
to
of
put that in my diary every day.
yes, be kind to yourself.
Be kind. Be empathetic to yourself because we're always too hard on ourselves. So we just need to be a little bit kinder.
Yes, that is actually good advice.
Yeah.
But I have to practice that.
Agreed.
My strength, not my strength.
We all do. It's
Yes.
In terms of the future for the community and the disability community, what are your hopes of change?
My hopes of change is that the disability community will be listened to. The disability community and their families know what they need. There are a lot of conversations happening at the moment around cost-saving measures. A huge way to save cost is to listen to people and what they need and not go through all these big assessment processes, not go through the lawyers and the ART and all of those appeals. Listen, because we're 99% of the time we're not going to ask for more than what we need.
Mm-hmm.
We're literally asking for what we need to function. Yeah. And so my hope and dream is that the decision makers listen to people in the disability community. Like we are the best people that know exactly what we need. Just because we might have the same diagnosis as someone else, what we need is different because our lives are all different and how we operate are different and who's around us is different. So I think my hope is that the disability community is properly listened to and we, I guess, included in changes and part of the conversation and planning at a much higher level because I think cost savings will come from cutting out the bureaucracy, to be honest.
100% agree.
Not to be political or say anything
correct.
I shouldn't, but that is really strongly how I feel.
And it's the truth. And everyone would agree with you that are in this space. We need to take it back to the bare bones and listen to the people that it affects the most.
And read the reports. That's a big thing because that was really offensive to the OT community because we put so much time and effort into understanding our clients, understanding their needs, really putting forward an accurate representation of their lives. And if those reports aren't being read, well, the government's choosing to waste their money.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Absolutely. On that note, thank you so much for your time, Fiona. What an amazing story. You really have been through a lot, and I wish you all the best moving forward.
Thank you so much for having me, Kate and Jen. It's been a real pleasure to speak to you.
It was absolutely lovely to meet you, Fiona.
Thank you.
Bye.